I've been reading the starter set for Blade Runner over the last few days, couple of weeks. I've read it a couple of times, and this is part one of an in-depth review of the game and the rules and what comes in this starter set. This is part one because I have read the rules but not the adventure yet, but I am really eager to get to grips with this game and tell you all about it because I really am enjoying it very, very much. I think that, yeah, this is definitely worth the amount of money that you have to spend to get your hands on it. Welcome to the GMS Magazine RPG review videos. The starter set is absolutely packed with things, but the rules are very concise and very well put together, as you would expect. So let's go into it, but let me explain exactly how the game is going to play. Yeah, it comes with a few more things, some cards that are on the table, and then underneath there is the adventure that I will go into later on when I read it, but without spoilers. That's going to be the trickiest bit. But let's go in depth, shall we? Okay, firstly, yeah, the binding can come out if you treat it the way I do. So be careful and be gentle. It's not going to be difficult for me to re-stick it, but it can come out fairly easily. Okay, so episode 1. This chapter is going to explain a little bit how the game is paced and where it takes place. This game takes place, chronologically speaking, sometime between the first movie and more recent film. So there is plenty of choices. They have got rid of some of the problematic aspects of Blade Runner, as in having to deal with hunting these creatures, the replicants, who are or may not be sentient, but have an expiry date of 2 years. And now you can play a replicant who is a more modern model with more human-like characteristics, but under great scrutiny just in case something goes wrong. So there's still a bit of discomfort in there if you're going to play a replicant, but it's nothing like it would be like if you were playing just humans hunting replicants. In this world, there has been this massive blackout and humanity basically had to restart again. So there is an awful lot of chaos, there's an awful lot of confusion, there is a lot of corruption all over the place, which is what you would expect from a dystopian kind of future. Your Blade Runner. Let's go into character creation, shall we? Okay, every character is going to have a series of attributes, and attributes, the free elite system goes into, usually goes into the number of dice that you have to roll. So for example, if you have 4 dice, so 4 points in strength, that means that you would roll 4 d6s. That's how it plays in Mechatron, that's how it plays in Forbidden Lands and in Mutant Year Zero. Not this time. This time they have reduced the number of dice to just 2 of them. And the reason why is, as you can see here, the attribute score, you have a different level, which is from A to D, with A being the highest, and you roll a D12, and a 6 being the lowest, which is level D. The die size is the maximum number that you can roll with a die, and then there is a description of what that entails regarding your capabilities. So if you have an A in something, you are literally extraordinary at that thing, whereas if you get a 6, you are, I don't know, like feeble, just kind of the average human being. We also go into health and resolve, and the game comes with downtime. This is something compulsory. The adventures are going to take place in shifts because you're a Blade Runner. You also need time to rest and recover from the stresses of your work. And also downtime is going to be the time that you use to upgrade your equipment as well as rest, when you want to level up your skills, that is the sort of time when you do it. But the reason I like it the most is because it's an absolutely fantastic resource to speed things up, to keep the pace of the adventure going. You know, just as you are going to be doing things during your downtime, so are your enemies. So how are you going to arrange that? How are you going to manage that downtime? Yeah, sorry, that's my dog barking. Don't mind him. He kind of lives here. So that, I think, is a very, very good thing to keep in mind. In terms of skill levels, again, everything has been, I say reduce. Reduce is not the right word, because it's not a reduction. It's more a constraint. It's more a filtering to levels A to D with D12s to D6s, and off we go. Key memory and key relationships are also those two things I really, really like. This is something similar to what they have in Forbidden Lands with your secret and your pride. With your key memory being something that will help you grind yourself to the situation, to don't, you know, lose your mind and give up to stress, and can help you regain composure or humanity. And then your key relationship, which can be any kind of mentorship, which is brilliant, because it helps you decide, you know, oh, I remember this person who allowed me to do so and so and so. I'm gonna go for them. Gear, they simplify things as well with making it, you know, you have your signature item, which is something that you can hold on to help you, you know, again, become a little bit more zen about things that are going on in your life, which can be very, very hard. And then your standard issue on other gear. Your standard issue, because you're going to be playing as a Blade Runner, is your standard equipment that you get as an officer. And any other issues, any other assets, are things that you have to specifically request, by which case you're going to have to spend some points to get them, or that you can buy, that then you can spend some money on, which is also called a chinyang. That's a unique kind of coin, currency for this game. This is the thing that I really like: promotion and humanity. Promotion points are the points that you're going to use and you're going to accrue. For example, if you do very well during a case, you're going to be accruing promotion points, and that will make it easier for you to access higher levels of equipment or higher level of people, or simply to get a pay rise. That is the promotion points. And the humanity points are what differentiates us between replicants and humans, which doesn't mean at all that as replicants you cannot get a humanity point. You can. It's not necessarily always a good thing, but you can, because getting humanity points means that you're getting too close to us and you might be a bit unpredictable. You may be malfunctioning, because, you know, humans do malfunction. So people don't like that. They make them feel a little bit more uncomfortable. So it is a very interesting addition to the game. Baseline tests are the tests that replicants have to do when they malfunction, and it's just to make sure that they are, well, as they are meant to be. They keep their mental stability in check. If you fail them, eventually, after you fail a couple of them, you could go into, you know, death. They will just decommission you because you are irrecoverable. But there's plenty of chances to recover if you're playing a replicant. It's just one of those things that add tension to playing a replicant, but it does come with its advantages. Replicants don't suffer physical damage. They only suffer stress because they don't feel pain in the same way. So that makes them a lot more resistant than humans are. So it isn't all bad about being a replicant. Actually, quite the opposite. I quite like the idea. Something else that you have is a number of core skills, like force, hand-to-hand combat, stamina, firearms, mobility, stealth, medical aid, observation, tech, connections, manipulation, insight, and driving. And those things are going to be connected. Those things are going to be connected to your core abilities, which are strength, agility, intelligence, and empathy. Yes, empathy is a core skill here, it's a core ability for characters in this game, because it is one of the ways to figure out if somebody is a replicant or a human being, because they feel empathy in completely different ways. So that is very interesting. That also means that you can use empathy to, well, empathize with other NPCs. So I really like how that opens the possibility of using an emotion that skill. I don't know, it's differently. Very, very good. Now, let's go on to the dice and the skills. By the way, these are the core skills, and each one is going to be paired with one of the core abilities. So, for example, if you need to hide, then you would choose stealth with agility. Once you do that, here come the dice. And in the core set comes a complete 2 set of dice that you're going to need for this game. So 2d6s, 2d8s, 2d10s, and 2d12s. Why? Well, one for me, one for the GM. Because the way that this is going to work is that, for instance, if I am really, really good at stealth, I'm going to take my d12, but if I am just, I don't know, average at my agility, I'm going to take a d6. I am going to roll both of them, and look, these are successes. So a 6 or higher is a success, but the higher the die, the more little successes or eyes that you can get, thus getting more successes. You only need one success, one, to do whatever it is that you intended to do. So if you're trying to pick a lock, then you only need one success to pick it. But if you got 3 successes, then that would be a critical success, and you would do incredibly well. If you don't get any successes, you didn't get it. That is it. However, things become more interesting here. You can force your rolls if you have any score in your ability. So, for instance, if I didn't have any points in stealth, then I would only roll for my agility, which would be a d6. But if I have it, then I would roll both dice, and then I could force the roll. If you force the roll, any number ones that you roll are going to have an adverse effects. That's it. But if you roll more successes, you're going to add to it. Now, rolling ones may look like something really bad because it's going to have some adverse effects, but also they're going to give you some humanity points, or they're going to give you some promotion points, or they're going to give you something or other that may actually be good for you to spend later on. So forcing your roll is necessary at times. You can also get advantage. So say that you say, okay, I am continuing with the stealth example, but I am also wearing specific very black clothes so I can blend in the shadows. So I want to get an advantage, and the GM could say, okay, you get an advantage, and that means that you get an extra die, your lowest, to your roll, and you get to add it. Oh, look at that, I have now 2 successes. How amazing am I? So you succeed very, very well indeed, and you discard this one, of course. Also, you could have disadvantage. So if instead of wearing black clothes, you were wearing a reflective, high-vis jacket, then the GM could say, sorry, you're too visible. You can only roll your die. So you keep your highest die, and hopefully you also roll 12 so you can get 2 successes. Again, the more successes you roll, the better. The fewer ones you roll, the better. The system is that. It doesn't really have a lot more to it. Anything else that comes after becomes little add-ons to the roles. The book comes as well with, well, all of this is perfectly explained in here. Believe you me, if I could understand this, you can understand that. But then I have been playing Forbidden Lands and Megatron and Mutant Year Zero over the last couple of years a lot. So I'm very, very familiar. Oh, and Alien a lot. So I'm very familiar with this. And this doesn't deviate from the way that those games play. So if you're familiar with those games, you already have advantage to this game. This is quite interesting that they do tell you, the chance of success, based on your initial rolls and the chance of push rolls. These are just statistics. It's quite interesting that they have managed. Again, advantage and disadvantage we get for the key memories, what do to you, group rolls, and opposed rolls as well. And with opposed rolls, basically is the one who gets the most number of successes on each roll, and if there is a tie, then there's a tie, and nothing happens. That's it. Oh, regarding advantage and disadvantage, they cancel each other. So if you have something that will give you advantage, but something that will give you disadvantage, that's it. You have a normal roll. Simple. Right, you get the gears, you get the hand-to-hand combat, you have the explanation of what every skill is, and then we get some specialties. This is interesting as well, and I can imagine that you will be able to create some, and I wonder if this is something that they give you a bit more information on in the core rulebook, which is going to be the next thing I read, because I want to make a comparison as to whether the core rulebook is enough or if this is a good thing to have, so on and so forth. So I will do that at a later date. But you get some specialities like bodyguard, cash flow, insider. Each one of them is going to give you a specific advantage to a aspect or an area of expertise of your life. So choosing one of these would be great. Coming up with new ones would be probably even better. Now, combat and chases. Of course there's going to be combat. Of course there are going to be chases. After all, you're playing a police officer. You're playing a Blade Runner. But also there's going to be an awful lot of chases, which I found very, very interesting. I'm really looking forward to trying it. Zones and range. The game divides itself very loosely in close combat. You get, engage, short, medium, long, and extreme. They are in here. So engage is hand to hand. That's it. Short is in the same room, for instance, where you can shoot at people. You can move up to them very quickly. Medium is 25 meters. This distance that you can run in just a few seconds. Long would take you a little bit longer. It would be a little bit harder to hit with some guns. A little bit easier with others. And extreme is when you need a car to get where you are. And if you're going to leave the map, well, so on and so forth. You have rounds, you have initiative. Initiatives, how does it play? We have, this is the mock shot, sorry. You have this deck of cards. And with this deck of cards, they come with numbers. So you're going to give the players one each or more if the situation warrants it. And they in secret, the players will look at their number, and then you as the GM will decide, will pick one as well. So what's left, first go the players, then you go yourself. And the players can decide how they want to arrange the initiatives. So for instance, if somebody has an ability that would be beneficial to trigger before anyone else, the players can swap the initiative order so they can go one after the other. So that is, and then the GM. Of course, the players can guess what number the GM has, but it is by no means certain what they're going to have. For instance, if none of the players have number 10, which would be the first player to go, maybe, the Blade Runner, the GM got it, but maybe they didn't. Who knows? Do you want to risk it? So that is how initiative works. It's a system that I have tried and tested many, many times, and it works very, very well indeed. There might be some abilities that will allow you to take 2 cards and keep one, and then you pass it on to the other players, and then they take 1 or more cards and pass it on. So it works well. It puts the advantage on the players, which is nice, but it also leaves a little room for uncertainty, which is also very, very nice. You get actions and moves. these are the combat actions that you can take. Oops, sorry, let me show you. Combat actions that you can take, which are sprint, crawl, you can have an alarm attack, so on and so forth. And then they tell you if there is any prerequisite to them, and then what skill. Hi humans, I really am sorry about the break, but my neighbor decided that it was a good time to, you know, clean his flat with a vacuum cleaner, and it was very noisy for a few seconds. So let's go back into the door, and I took advantage to, you know, get a companion here who needed my company, and I need his. So anyway, back to Blade Runner. Right, we were talking about earlier about movement and about range combat, and we are going to talk now about damage. There is the description of how to recover, what is the downtime and recovery for, what happens when you get critical injuries. And with about critical injuries, look at this. There is a critical injuries for crushing and for piercing, well, which is pretty interesting, because they're going to affect in a very, very different way. The critical injuries can be either, well, there's a description of the injury, you roll a d12, you get your description of the injury, whether it is lethal, whether you need a death save, and for how long. So for instance, in here, internal bleeding, it could be lethal, and you need every shift, you need to roll a death save, or every round if it is a shattered pelvis. And then the healing, whether it is a week, a month, whether you get some permanent damage, so on and so forth. And then the same thing goes for piercing. And then stress and resolve. Let's remember that replicants get stress, not necessarily physical damage. They can be repaired because they are just biological machines after all. So they can be repaired without too many issues. Humans though, not so much. But you can get an awful lot of stress. Now, you get two different stress, several different stress tables. One is the stress factors, so that is what kind of situation are going to lead you to getting stress. And then critical stress effects for humans and for replicants. The stress results for replicants are harsher than they are for humans. You can be decommissioned a lot more quickly because you can go off the rails, which is, yeah, pretty bad. Okay, more hazards, and then we get the vehicle combat. And yes, you have a flying car. You're a Blade Runner after all, so yes, you can go out there over the skies of LA with your flying car, which is great. And that will take you from pretty much any point in LA to another point in 15 minutes. That is pretty decent. So vehicles in combat, they have a special skill called maneuverability, which is what you will roll rather than your own thing. So it doesn't matter how good you are with a car. If the maneuverability of the vehicle is low, then there's not much you can do, and you will do a lot better even if you don't know how to drive very well with a car or a vehicle that has a high level of maneuverability. I like that addition to the thing. I like that addition that it's not just about the person, it's also about the vehicle. So that's great. You can do damage to the vehicle, you can have your spinners, and you can have chases. And chases are very interesting. I like it because something they've given us in this starter set are cards for them. So you have some chase maneuvers, ground chase obstacles, foot chase obstacles, and aerial obstacles. How does it work? Well, the players are going to get the chase maneuvers that they're going to choose in secrets, and so is the GM. But also, there are going to be some obstacles, whether you are on foot, whether you are on a ground vehicle, or whether you are on a spinner or on a flying car. You're going to have these obstacles to make it a little bit more interesting than just rolling your die, and whoever gets the most successes is the one who gets the advantage or gets closer, because that's basically it. You roll your 2 dice, and if you don't get any success, but I do, if I am pursuing you, I get closer to you. If you're being pursued by me and you get a success and I get none, then you get further away from me. That means that your driving, or basically your running away skills, are better than mine at the time. But of course, these cards are going to add a different level of, unpredictability. So for instance, you find a construction, a major construction is sight is ahead. It gives an advantage to the hide, block and cut off maneuvers, but a disadvantage to pursue, flee and stand and shoot. A fail, pursue, flee roll with inflict 3 points of damage to the vehicle. So basically you crash. And the chase maneuvers can be pursue, flee, which can apply to either the pursuer or the prey, stand and shoot, other, which you can invent it, you can hide, or try to hide, or you can block, or you can cut off. This, my dear friends, is exactly what role-playing games needed to make pursue and chases a lot more interesting. I know what you're going to say, or some of you might say, that a table can do that. Yeah, but a table leaves you to the whim of the die. This does not. This gives you a little bit of agency in deciding what kind of maneuver you want to use, even though later on you may regret it because a different obstacle may appear that's not going to do any good to you. But that, again, that level of tension, which is something that Free League does so well with their games, I just love it. I really, really love it. So, work in the case. This is a small part that will give you an idea as to how to run the RDUHQ, how to run the game, what are the resources from the LAPD, what are your strengths, what are the assets that you can get, how to follow the scent. It gives you an idea of a couple of the NPCs. And then the tools of the trade is the last part of this book, which comes with the basics of the equipment that you will get as a Blade Runner. So you get, for instance, the Kia, I presume that's how it is pronounced, the Void Camp machine and the baseline test. The Void Camp machines is what allowed you to detect replicants in the past, is still available, is still usable because of some type of replicants who may or may not be still around there. But the baseline test is the newer one, is the more modern, and it is more reliable than the Void Camp machine. You have a little bit of armory, which is very cool. Some close combat and hand-to-hand weapons. And then, of course, you have the spinner, and you have different models of spinner and the spinner carrier. And that's it. And then the basic goods. That's what you get. This is most certainly enough to play pretty much any game. So I can imagine that the core rulebook offers something in addition to this. Perhaps more equipment, more abilities, more skills, more. But to start playing and getting a good idea as to what the rules play like and what the game plays like, this is perfect. Of course, you may have a few things missing. Advancement and leveling up may be just a little bit and could do with a little bit more to it. But it's a starter set. It's a flavor. This is something that you can read in one, perhaps 2 afternoons if you're a slow reader. But as starter sets rules go, this is absolutely fantastic. Really good. And this week I will be reading the adventure, which is called Electric Dreams, which is here, which is fairly short at 55 pages of beautiful everything, including maps and so on and so forth. And it comes with a few additions that the rules do omit, and they do tell you. You'll find about this more in the adventure, in Electric Dreams. So there you go. So far, This is amazing. If the adventure is as good as the rules, you want to buy this. Seriously, you do want to buy this. And the system, what they've done with it, reducing the number of dice, so you don't have to have, like we've happened to have in Forbidden Lands, sometimes running, rolling 15 dice of different colors, one for skill, one for ability, one for armor. No anymore. Just 2 dice, same system. Amazing. Thank you very much indeed for being there. Do leave me your comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And until the next time, I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care. Woo! I'm gonna need some water and maybe a cup of tea. Okay.